Hey guys, this is Craig from Let's Start Talking. This is a quick tutorial on using the funds tracking spreadsheet for tracking the funds that you're spending during your LST project. This is pretty straightforward, hopefully pretty easy. This spreadsheet is something you can, of course, use on a computer. It's browser based, but hopefully also something you could use on a mobile device. We reformatted it so that it could be used on something as small as a phone. So all you would need is an internet connection, and then either opening it up in a browser or you can use the Smartsheet app. You don't need a paid account or anything to use that. But there's several sections here. I'll take you through very quickly. At the top are some instructions. So it says to use the budget below and the funds from Let's Start Talking for project or work expenses, not for personal expenses or otherwise. Two, every team expense, please enter in the spreadsheet every day. The green spaces in this spreadsheet are places you can enter data. So that's a visual cue. But if you'll do this every day, it'll be really easy for you. Please collect receipts for your expenses. If you can't get one from the vendor, then just make one. We'll provide a way to do that for you. And then last, please return all unused funds to Let's Start Talking at the end of your project. It should be pretty easy to know how much that should be based on your accounting. And we do need those returned in US dollars, not local currency. We do not want local currency. And if you'll do that quickly, then you'll be done and we can finalize the accounting on our side as well. So you've got some instructions, and your budget, every team's budget is different. This is just an example of a budget in here. So we'll enter the budget amount, and then as you enter expenses below, whether it's US dollars or local currency, it will all be converted into US dollar amounts here in the expenses, and then totaling the expenses, and then it will show you how much is left in each budget area and how much total you should still have on hand in US dollar equivalency. So that's your team budget. We'll enter that, and it'll be specific to your particular project. A little section for cash on hand. So if you're keeping up with your tracking of the funds, then you should be able to look at this and know exactly how much US dollars you should have on hand and how much local currency you should have on hand. You'll just use this at the end of your project, a place to tell us how much you're returning. So you can enter it in the green there. This amount should equal this amount, really, because this takes into account all the expenses that you had, subtracts it out of what you started with. So that those two should match. And there's another reminder here not to return it to us in local currency, but to return all unused funds to LST in US dollars. Then a couple places here for exchanging currency. On shorter projects, you might do this once or twice. Longer projects, you might do it a little more often. So all you have to do is enter the amount of US money you exchange and the amount you got back. You don't have to write down any fees. You don't have to come up with the exchange rate, just how much you gave to the bank or the teller or the little exchange office and how much they gave you back. So each time you do that, it'll calculate the exchange rate, average it out across all your exchanges. So you don't have to worry about the exchange rate, but just when you exchange, enter how much you gave them and how much they gave you back in local currency. Likewise, at the end of your project, you'll need to exchange local currency back into US currency. So almost always that's just a one-time transaction. So amount of local currency you exchanged and amount of US currency that you received. Okay, income, there may be, it's rare, but there may be occasions where you receive some money during the project. It could be for workbooks where the host has asked your team to charge for workbooks. They may keep the money themselves to cover advertising or other expenses related to the project, but if they happen to give it to you, you can total that in here, either the local currency they gave you or if they gave you US dollars. So not likely to happen for most of you, but it's there in case it does happen. And then expenses, this is the part you'll use most often. So typically you'll open up this sheet and just scroll down here and start entering stuff. So you'll enter in a date, you can enter it in by hand, or you can click on the little calendar icon and pick the date, then you can make a note. That's not necessary unless it's unusual or unless it helps you. So if it's an unusual expense, it would help us to have the note. Um, so that's optional. And then you pick the expense category, just it's a drop down list that matches the categories in your budget. So you pick the right category here. And then if it was a US expense, you'd enter in here in this column. If it's a local currency expense, you enter here. You don't have to convert it or anything, just the exact amount of US dollars or the exact amount of local currency that you spent. So you've got plenty of lines to enter expenses all through your project. And then down here, there's just a little bit of math going on. All these are locked, so you won't. It'll be hard for you to. You won't make a mistake or accidentally delete something there. And then we've got a little place here just for some staff notes about your budget and our processing of it. Okay, so pretty straightforward. It's important. It's really important. It'll help you during your project. It helps us because we base future projects on the expenses that you encounter at your site. So it helps us a lot too, and it just helps us all be really good stewards of the money that's been donated. It's a good way to show that we're being thoughtful about the money and accounting for it. So let us know if you've got any questions or any concerns. The nice thing about this being online is that we can look at it with you. We can fix mistakes. Just it's really simple. So let us know if you need any help. And thank you again so much for taking on this responsibility.